Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Tracy Show. Now that I've remembered to hit the live button, I know now we're live because I see the little red thing in this corner that lets me know I am live. That's the type of date I've had. Obviously, my name is Tracy. If you've watched this show before, you know what it's about. Um, Before I get started and letting my guest introduce himself, hit that subscribe button, hit it, smash it, obliterate it, destroy it. We are at 420 subscribers, which means we are 80 away from 500. Once I hit that 500, that's going to make me very happy. So hit that subscribe button. Also hit the notification button. Subscribing is literally free. Support me on Patreon, guys. I am down to one little light. Um, I I just need as much financial support for this channel I can get. Subscription Support on Patreon starts at $2 per month. And that's gonna help me get lighting, better background, just to take this show to the next level. And finally, I will be talking about this several times. As you all know, I am heading up a drama camp for children in the city of Indianapolis. We are trying to raise $3,500. Your contribution, large or small, makes that happen for inner city youth. The camp starts June the 20th, runs through August the 16th, 2026. Hit that, support that, appreciate that. And of course, we're going to talk about the Socialist Party today. But first, I'm going to turn it over to my guest and let him introduce himself.
Well, thanks for having me today, Tracy. I really appreciate it. Hi, everybody. My name is Ben Davis. I'm an independent socialist candidate running for the Indiana House of Representatives in District 13. Tracy also mentioned the Socialist Party. I'm also helping build a new party, another alternative in Indiana outside the two-party system called the Socialist Party of Indiana. I'll talk more about that later, but just know that that's also what I'm running under as well. Yeah, I don't know if you want me to go into why I started to run or that kind of stuff, Tracy, but let me know what else you would like me to introduce about myself.
Mostly because I despise the Democrat. I cannot, I will not. So I'll dab a little bit because I know you said you're running as a Democratic Socialist, and normally I don't interview Democrats because I'm like, I'm not listening to you at this point. I'm done. But I will have you briefly talk about why it is that you ran and why it is you chose to run under that title, Democratic Socialist.
Yeah, thanks for that question. So I am a DSA member in Greater Lafayette, been there for a little over a year now. Um, as far as my politics, that's how I identify. So as far as, the two-party system, I've never voted on a straight party ticket. I've never identified, as either party. When I go to vote, I pick and choose. And as far as the reason why I decided to run, I'd looked back when I voted last time, right, in this district, and there really wasn't a serious Democratic challenger to the Republican or serious challenger at all to the MAGA Republican that's in the current seat in District 13. It was just kind of a paper candidate, and I saw that, with the straight ticket voting in Indiana, right, that person got like 26% of the vote, right, without even trying to campaign. I'm like, well, if that's the bar, I can do better than that, right? I can campaign, I can talk to people. So I was balancing like, all right, there's that potential, like, should I run as a Democrat for one time to get my name out there? I considered doing that, but the Tippecanoe County Party chair, since I've never I've never voted in a primary before, said, nope, we don't want a Democratic Socialist on our ticket. We'd rather have nobody run. So I said, okay, I'll take door number 2 and I will go get my signatures and run as an independent. I was, that I would rather done that anyways, right? The really only pro to running as a Democrat again would to get that, straight party ticket voters. But otherwise, yeah, this is really where I align, right? I don't align with the Democrats. There are certain Democratic candidates that I'm certainly friends with, and we have a lot of commonality on our platforms. But as far as Democratic Party leadership, I'm in total agreement with you, Tracy, that they are funded by the same billionaires that the Republican Party is running is funded by, and from being, a lot of, many of them being APAC funded, to, supporting forever wars in our military, and not supporting rights and, civil rights nationally and everything else. Yeah, I'm proud not to call myself a Democratic candidate.
Great to hear. I do want to talk about, and I've talked about this on my other shows, and people always ask me, what problem do you have with the Democrats? Well, no, here is my problem with both parties, both the Republicans and the Democrats. As a Black American, the Republicans ignore us, and the Democrats take us for granted. And it becomes annoying. So when I'm looking for a candidate, first of all, to me, the Democratic Party is the party of genocide. You enabled it.
Hmm.
You said the Israel has a right to defend itself comment, which that's a huge I'm turning off everything you said after that. I don't care if you're for Medicare for all. I don't care if you're for reparations, which they aren't. Um, I don't care. Once you say that sentence, I turn it off. I don't have anything else to say. And I think one of the challenges that I find is to get other people that look like me to see that the Democratic Party doesn't necessarily, because I know the Republicans don't care. They literally tell me, we don't like you. We don't want you to vote. We don't want you to vote. Well, gerrymander your districts. We'll make sure you don't have any Black representation. Democrats kind of do the same thing because they literally just did it in California, but they have this phoniness that irritates me, and I don't know whether it's a me thing or is this a oh Tracy, you're not alone thing, because I'm like, y'all just sitting here saying words, and that's all you're doing, saying words.
Yeah. So I hear you. Obviously, I don't have your experience directly, but yeah, I mean, tokenization of people of color, of LGBTQ people, that's something that happens all too often with the Democratic Party. And as you can see, right, this, as well as the top image in my website, right, I'm holding a Stop the Gaza Holocaust sign. I'm downtown every 2 weeks with my friends at Jewish Voice for Peace, in downtown Lafayette, protesting, and just keeping it in mind that every single day more people in Gaza are being murdered, women, children, men, everybody, genocided by the weapons that we are supplying them. And that started with Joe Biden, and it would
And
have
yep.
continued with Kamala. It continues. The U.S. empire doesn't matter if it's Team Red or Team Blue that is in charge. We are the empire in this world, in this timeline, and we need to do, all of us need to do as much as we can to end it, right? Close the 800 military bases, stop the huge amount of funding for war where we're not, spending it to help, we're spending it on death and not on life. Yeah, and that's maybe the very largest reason why I don't want to associate myself with the Democratic Party, is because of the military industrial complex that they support just as much as Republicans do.
And I think another thing, and I'm you guys, I'm going to get to the Indiana Socialist Party because
Mhm.
uh, I'm so like this came out of nowhere. I'm like, oh, there's an Indiana Socialist Party. Where? Um, I always think, let me see if I can phrase this question right so it doesn't sound offensive to what you're doing, because what I think you're doing is great. The Indiana petition gathering is a literal scam. If you all don't know, in the state of Indiana, when you don't run as a Democrat and you don't run as a Republican, you have to gather signatures. How do I know this? Because I worked with the Cornel West for President campaign, and I had to get out there every weekend and gather, and I still know the number 37,973 signatures. So you can collect all those signatures that you want. You can collect 50,000 like the Green Party did. The Green Party of Indiana collected 50,000 signatures. But guess what? Our Secretary of State's office did. They threw them away. So my question to you is, um, what's your goal? Well, how many signatures you have to collect? How many are you actually collecting? And what do you do? Because we know it's going to come when the Secretary of State's office says, "Oh, well, this one they forgot to cross their T, so we're going to throw it out."
Yeah, very much in the middle of this. I've been working on this the last 6 months or so to gather signatures. So first was talking about myself and my particular race in House District 13. So the Indiana Election Office has told me that my count is 384 signatures. That is based on the 2022 Secretary of State's election. So everybody who voted in House District 13 for the Secretary of State, we take 2% of that amount, not the people who voted for the representative, not the seat that I'm running on, but the Secretary of State in House District 13. They have told me, and they've given me a letter, that number is 384 signatures that I need to get ballot access. As of yesterday, the Topeka County Election Office informed me that my current signature count in the Indiana system is 362. So I am 22 signatures away from that number. And I have heard, some of these horror stories and these, about, how many signatures do I actually need to gather that are approved, right? I'm anticipating that there are going to be challenges and things that I've not done this before. So again, I've heard the story. So I'm trying to gather as many signatures as I can. I'm not just going to stop at 385. So I know I need to get more. Am I going to get twice as many? Probably not, but I'm going to continue working throughout the end of May and through June 30th for the deadline to get those signatures. But yeah, I fully expect, the two-party system, has the power in the state, and they don't want to give up any of that power. So I can do what I can to kind of play the game that's been set there for, about the last 40 years, as I understand, as this rule has been set. And, we can't claw power back until, we can try to do our best to play the game that they've set in front of us to take some of that power slowly. And, I'm, as you heard, right, I'm perfectly willing and have been working on this with various team members over the last 6 months to get these signatures. I've been very thankful for the help that I've gotten.
Okay, so that sounds like a very low number for me. So first question, what county is it that you're in?
So my district is gerrymandered like all the rest of them, right? So it's the outskirts of Lafayette and West Lafayette and Tippecanoe County. So I live in the southern part of Lafayette, Indiana. It includes the entirety of Benton County and Warren County, most of Fountain County, some of Jasper, some of Newton, and White counties. So we're talking from Kentland down to Covington. We're talking, I'm looking at the map to remind me, cities, Otterburn and Fowler, Attica, Williamsport, cities like that. Yeah, so it's a very sprawling district. It is the largest House district by land area in the state, as a matter of fact. Didn't know that when I entered, but learned that later.
I think, the problem is I'm thinking Indianapolis because I live in Marion County. So I'm like, well, 2%, 384, I could do that by myself. And then, like, well, wait a minute, I got at least 500, like all by myself. But I'm dealing with a larger, okay, that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, well, wait a minute, because Marion County has 1 million people. So 2% of that would be my
Yeah,
math is off, y'all. I think it's 20,000.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, 20,000, and then that would be if every single person in the county of that million voted for Secretary of State in 2022, right? So it'd be 2% of whoever voted for any
yeah,
Secretary of
whoever.
State
Yeah,
in
because I'm assuming
2022.
that the people that would vote, because we have 686,000 registered voters,
Okay.
assuming all of those people voted, yeah, I know. Um, then you got to take 2% of that. So I'm just taking 1 million saying, okay. But I wonder why no one has ever ran on that as an issue, right? Because that would be literally, I'm like, this is an issue. to the voters because they're literally telling you, and you got to vote for this one or this one, and you don't have any other choice. And if we're in a democracy, which we literally are not, that's not democratic at all. That's we're controlling who runs. You're going to vote for these people, whether you like them or not. I don't know why that's never been an issue that a candidate has ever raised.
Yeah. And I obviously do talk about it. I've been talking about it here now. I know there's other organizations that are talking about it as well. Socialist Party of Indiana, that's one of the reasons that we've created the party. We want to have a ballot line so that we don't have to get the signatures every single time, right? The Libertarian Party's had this for 30 years. They were able to get ballot access and get a Secretary of State to get 2% of the vote in the 90s, and they've been able to do so ever since then. We can get those 38,000 signatures as well, and we can get a ballot line as well for our party. So that's our
Okay.
intention. So
I understand. I'm not saying you're not talking about it. I've just never heard of a candidate like bring this up. I'm like, okay, nobody. So we're all going to just be quiet on this one. Okay, I see how it goes. But I do want to now kind of shift the focus to the Indiana Socialist Party. And I'll kind of dip in some questions about your campaign as I'm going along. When okay, let me backtrack. Is there a National Socialist Party?
I think there's a Socialist Party USA, but that's not our organization at all. We're a brand new organization that just was incorporated late last year for this effort, right? To create a ballot line for a big umbrella socialists in the state of Indiana. We believe that the Democratic Party is so weak in Indiana that this is a good place, an ideal place for us to start this effort, with Bernie Sanders in the last 10 years and Zoran Mamdani, other electeds like Jesse Brown, city county councilor in Indianapolis, right? There is enough movement and there is enough discontent with the two-party system that Indiana, we think, is a great place to start. It's also the home of Eugene Debs, the presidential candidate of the Socialist Party from about 100 years ago that got around 1 million votes when he was imprisoned in the 1910s. So,
Speaking of, no, I'm not going to do that. So what? How is it that the party came to be? Was it just people in Lafayette? 'Cause trust me, I live in Indianapolis. When someone said there's an Indiana Socialist Party, I was shocked. I know there's a Green Party, I know there's a Libertarian Party, but socialist, I'm like, where did this one come from? So when you all met, did you all just come together virtually? Was it a convention? Was it a just we want to we're going to do this no matter what, or you were trying to support several different candidates? What was it that made you all come together and say, we're going to form this party?
yeah, so great question. So, just about all of the members that started the party came out of DSA, various DSA chapters around the state. DSA nationally has been talking about and inching towards, being a kind of party. Zoran Mamdani is a DSA member. New York City DSA was huge behind his campaign and still is in his mayoral since he's been elected. So, we've kind of, different ones of us have just kind of had these ideas and just kind of, it came together just kind of as individuals, right? So, as I was considering running just as an independent, that's kind of where I started, right? If you look at my CFA 1 filing, I filed as an independent with no party. Started to get connected to different DSA folks around the state and heard about, hey, we've been thinking about creating this party. DSA, I think from their last convention, talked about acting like a party, but not really passing anything that they were going to kind of be any kind of party. So, and with especially in Indiana, right, the big hurdle it is to get all of the signatures, right? We thought, hey, we can get a bunch of volunteers together, get signatures around the state. That democratic socialism is in the news, and it's becoming much more common. It's becoming much more palatable to talk about in everyday conversations. So um, let's give this a shot and let's build something bigger than the races that we're having today. So for my particular race, right, it's not just about me. It's not just about getting on the ballot and winning and getting in office. I'm trying to build something bigger, right? I want uh, socialists of various types to be able to run, in Indiana and then, kind of follow me, right? I'm learning as I go. I want to bring along my DSA chapter. I want to bring along, people that I know of how it works to, run an independent campaign, how to get the signatures, how to work with the state. So I decided to become a Socialist Party of Indiana candidate because, again, I want to build something bigger that's going to last longer than just Ben Davis for Indiana's House District 13 campaign. And the people that I was talking to that are still, that have built the party, I've been super impressed with them. I really believe that it's something that we can build and make, change kind of the hands of power in the state over time. And so, yeah, I'm really excited to help build it.
Now that first um meeting you all had, the one that I missed because I literally learned about it the day before. That was by Zoom, right?
Oh, you're talking about our
The
launch at the
statewide
Eugene Debs
meeting.
house?
Yes.
Yeah, so we decided, so we formed and had our Secretary of State candidate, a few months before that. It took us a while, had a few months where we were incubating and figuring out where we wanted to have our launch at. But yeah, that was the launch event for our party. We held it right there, just outside the Eugene Debs house in Terre Haute itself. We thought it was really symbolic, um, since the history of Eugene Debs in the United States comes right, just in this very state where his museum is and his previous home. Um, so yeah, we had our launch event. We had, our Secretary of State candidate talk. We had our acting chair speak. We had several other people speak. I spoke at it as well. So yeah, that's on Progressive Indiana Network where that's recorded. But yeah, that was our launch event. That wasn't when we decided to, come together and make a party. But
Right. And now wait a minute, hold on a second. I got this question, is right on the tip of my tongue, but I'll get it. But I noticed we got a comment. Thank you for the comments. Please comment. Nelson is in the house. There is definitely a movement to get away from the corporate bought Democrat and Republican parties and are looking for a better option. Unfortunately, both the both the duopoly will put up many obstacles, especially if you live in Indiana. I say Indiana is the worst state for ballot access. We've got Texas beat, we've got New York beat. We we're pretty much ranking in a category we shouldn't be ranking in. Why can't we be like Vermont? You get 10 people together, the candidates on the ballot. Matter of fact, let's just drop it. You say you want to run, your name is on the ballot. It should literally be that easy. But of course, we live in a system that is bought. Here is my next question. When do you all meet and how do you make the public aware of your meetings? Are they monthly? Are they quarterly? Or are they weekly? When are those meetings? How do they take place? And how do you make the public aware, hey, we're meeting?
yeah, great question. So um, we have a Discord that's open to people who want to sign up on our website. So if you go to socialistpartyin.com, you can sign up, answer a few questions, and then we're still we're a volunteer-based, grassroots-based party. So we're looking for people to help continue to build it. Getting signups all the time, which is really cool to see. And in our Discord, we have a schedule of events. Right, we have our weekly stand-up meeting, which everybody who signed up is welcome to attend and help us build, right? That's kind of just our weekly general stand up. Every 2 weeks we have our central committee stand up, right? That is our provisional leadership body, the early people that have started the party until we, finish how our governance, how our membership is going to work. Again, building the plane as we're flying it to have actual elections. So, but those meetings are always open to folks who have signed up. We have a tech team weekly meeting. We have a petition team weekly meeting. We have a policy teams, I think, bi-weekly meeting. So yeah, we have many different meetings. And again, they're all open to people who've signed up on our website, got access to our Discord. They can see the links to those meetings there, and they're welcome to attend and help us. We're a democratic organization. We want to, we need help. We're volunteer led, we're grassroots led. So to build this and make this the best we can, we need all the people and all the minds and opinions and thoughts that we can to help build it better. So I encourage it.
Other ways that you make the people, this is just a suggestion because I always got to throw it out. Do you all have a Facebook page?
Yeah, we're on social media. Mm-hmm.
I'm only suggesting this. You can say, Tracy, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. Have you considered putting your events, like your general meeting, on that page?
I don't think we're okay with it just being public and anybody and everybody can just join. Like when you join our
Okay.
Discord, we have a few questions that we ask, right? Where, it's delicate, right? Just like anything, any other Zoom meeting that you have open, right? You can't just let everybody in because it'll become chaos. So we're trying to figure out the best way to put in enough hurdles, but not too many hurdles that people can get involved, right? So it is absolutely a
That makes
balance.
sense.
That
That
so
makes
yeah,
a
we're
lot of
still
sense.
navigating that, and we appreciate the feedback. Yeah,
I didn't even think about that. So I want to share this website, the Indiana Socialist. Oh boy, I just had it right here. Socialistpartyin.com. That is the official website. And I want to share a couple things that I noticed that just kind of stood out to me. So I'm going to share share my screen. And the first thing I noticed, there's only two candidates. There's I'm not going to get this person's name right. Harrison Jacobo.
that's right. Yep,
Oh, I did. Okay. So Harrison is running for Secretary of State.
that's correct.
And it took Scott. Scott hosts another show called Indiana Progressives, and he was on my show last Sunday. Anyway, I did not realize that Secretary of State, the candidates are normally selected at their party conventions. I, for some reason, thought, oh, well, this is selected by the people during the primaries. I was wrong. So we've got oh, we got the Republican candidate whose name I can't think of, and then the Democrats. We have I know Evan By's son
Yeah, Bo
and the
Bye.
other person. Yeah,
Yep,
Bo By.
and Blythe Potter.
Yeah, thank you. Because I'm
Mhm.
like, so Harrison Jacobo is the official candidate of the Socialist Party. But I do want to kind of get over here on the issues
Okay.
that I really thought, it's about time somebody um talked about this, and it's public schools that thrive. I'm going to get to the other ones, but this is so important to me because I live, of course, with the state's largest school system, the Indianapolis public school system. And it seems to me that our city council and our state are 10 toes down in getting rid of public schools. And I don't know whether that's a control issue and they want to control the curriculum or what the issue is, but it seems to me that um, that they're really intent on getting rid of our public schools, which I think is the strength of the community. Um, I would love to see, and I'll just kind of and I know you can't see it at home, but just go to the site that you all guarantee comprehensive, high quality public education for every Hoosier of every stage of life, free from discrimination, wealth, identity, or place of origin, which is important. The only thing I want to ask is how do you fund that, right? Because right now, it's funded through property taxes. As a homeowner from Brom decided, hey, I'm going to lower property taxes. By the way, it didn't lower property taxes because mine jumped at least $210. I'm like, what happened? Um, talk about um, and I don't know if the party has a stance on it, how we can expand that funding because I have an idea, but I'm like, well, it may not work. And I'm not a politician. Before I let you answer that question, I'm not running for office. All the people out there in the comment section. No, no, no. But I kind of have an idea of okay, if we just got rid of property taxes, which I don't think we should or we lowered property taxes. That would be ideally less money for schools. And of course, we're giving them to parochial schools and private schools, etc. Is there an alternative funding source for public schools that you all have?
Great question. It is so complicated about how we fund our schools and Senate Enrolled Act 1 from 2025, the tax break that you talked about that's going to save us, or a portion of Hoosier property owners, homeowners, potentially $300 over the next few years from what it would have been, right? It's still going to go up, but it would just be $300 less. But yet it's taking millions of dollars away from public schools is maybe my very hottest topic of my very own campaign. I don't understand how legislators who had voted for that to take millions of dollars away from public schools when, people with like houses greater than $250,000 of value or higher to a certain extent, maybe getting back $300 or something like that over the next few years. And people like with really low value houses, like $100,000 worth houses, they're going up faster. So I don't understand how that works. So that is obviously the wrong direction that we're going, right? The funding formula for public schools and in county governments and lots of other things, the Senate Enrolled Act 1 impacted is huge, right? I don't understand how any elected official can get elected in the next election because of this. I don't understand it. And it really frustrates me. But as far as making sure public schools are funded, right? So, it is complicated. There's an idea that I have. I've looked at other states what they've done, right? What did Massachusetts recently do, right? They added a 4% surtax on people making $1 million or more a year. They were able to get $4 billion out of that and fund. I don't know if it was public education, but they were able to get funds from that. I know, taxing the rich is a common socialist policy, if you will. And while that is a start, I understand that doesn't sustain you forever. And I get that, but that is kind of the start, right? Indiana has a flat income tax. We're just below 4% or something like that for income tax. It doesn't matter how much you make. That's what you get. That's what you pay. And that benefits the rich in our state, right? Because if you make $40,000 a year, you make $40 million a year, right? That 4% takes a lot bigger hit from the $40,000 from the $4 million a year or something like that, right? So I think that's one step that we need to consider is to amend the Constitution so that we can have a tiered income tax. Because that just benefits the rich and hurts working people. As far as other things, funding sources, right? The other thing that comes to mind is things that we're spending money on that is inaccountable, that is not helping working Hoosiers, that things like the Indiana Economic Development Corporation, the IEDC, right? There's been so much news about it in the last year or so that it continues to be unaccountable. We keep dumping money into it. Why, right? If when public schools are not being funded, when our supermajority is sending us messages to say, hey, you should give us a pat on the back because we've now created a floor for public school salaries. They need to be at least $45,000 a year. Like what? I mean, according to MIT's cost of living calculator in Indiana, $45,000 today is only enough for a single person to be able to afford the cost of living for themselves, just barely. If you have one dependent in Indiana, you need to be making at least $75,000 a year to support living expenses with one dependent. And I don't know if there are very many, if any, public school teachers in Indiana that are making $75,000 a year, and that is abhorrent. That is in Indiana. School teachers and support staff in public schools are some of the most important roles in our entire society, and we're at this point in time in mid 2026, we're paying them poverty wages, and that is ridiculous.
And then we ask, well, why are they not going into the teaching profession? Gee, I don't know. They want to live and eat and have a place to live. Okay, so my idea is this. Here it is. Lottery tickets. Remember you were probably way younger than I am, but I remember when Indiana went to the lottery system, and all we heard was this money's going to go for education. I wonder how much of that current is going towards education, because I can't imagine that it's very much. I just can't, because we see the results. Schools are being slashed all the time. I because I don't play the lottery, so I'm telling you now, I don't play this one. I say slap a tax on lottery tickets. It's not like people are going to stop playing. They're not going to stop playing. Just put a dollar tax on it. That dollar goes towards education, education only, and that's it. Of course, I'm just thinking out loud, so I
Mhm.
don't want to hear anybody to come. That's the dumbest idea. I'm thinking out loud. That's all I'm doing. But I do like the tier tax system, because if you make more, you should pay more. That's just common sense. So I would like to do those combination of things, because we say, oh, um, um, oh, the children are our future, and da 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 da. And what do we do? Let's close down public schools. Let's give it to charter schools. I would also like to see y'all talk about public schools having more autonomy, and not us basing funding on test scores. Because personally, I think test scores are the worst way to evaluate student achievement. There's several different types of learning. Not every child learns in the same way, and to have this one standardized test, and if you don't do well on it, your school doesn't receive what other schools, that's just ridiculous to me.
Yeah, um, I can speak to one of your points here, right? As far as autonomy, right? So I recently interviewed five of the superintendents in House District 13, and actually today I actually posted the article about this. And one of the things that many of them identified is, I asked them, how often does your state representative meet with you? How do do you talk about what you want to see as far as bills and funding and everything else? And almost unanimously, they're like, no, we never hear from our state legislators, either our senators or our state representatives. They legislate, completely outside of what's actually happening on the ground at the state house and what they think. They never ask us what we need. The times that superintendents reach out proactively to their state legislators, again, from what I've heard, is that they will listen, but again, they'll vote along with their party, right? Back to the two-party system and that control. So yeah, we should all be on the same team, right? We're the legislators and the governor and everybody else that we're funding public education. We should be talking to the superintendents. We should be talking to the principals. We should be talking to the teachers and the parents, and be on the same team and say, what do we need? How do we need to make this work? What do we actually need, right? There was the recent cell phone ban all day long, right? Some superintendents I talked to like that, some didn't, right? Talk about local control. What's best for their school and their environment? Why is the
Yeah,
state
and
house
don't
deciding
forget,
this?
Indiana is one of the few states teachers can bring armed weapons into the schools. Yeah, that'll do it right there. Okay. That who if you all run for something, that I don't know how you regress a law, but that one just clearly needs to be. I'm like, this is so clearly a terrible idea. I don't know. It probably came under Braun, because he's not bright at all. But I'm gonna calm myself down. This, I know you're saying the lottery is a regressive tax. I get it. Like I said, I'm just thinking out loud. I'm thinking, because the using property taxes to fund schools, most of the people in Indianapolis don't own their homes. They just don't. They live in apartments. Now, if we're talking about taxing apartments, that's a whole different discussion, which I don't think we should do. but you got to look at the population. Our homes in this city, everybody can say it's regressive. I get that the lottery is regressive. But what I'm saying is we need to look at other ways because this tax cut for property taxes, like I said, mine almost doubled. I was paying maybe $184 a month. Now I'm paying like 275. Like I'm paying double what I was paying before, almost. Like it's a few dollars away from being double, and that's probably going to go up next year, and year after that, and year after that, and year after that. So instead of, oh, we get to save $300 over 20 years, we need to be looking at other ways. And I'm glad to see that the Indiana Socialist Party is saying, hey, this is important. Another one, and this is my favorite issue. It's the one that I go to bat for. I'm always going to go bat for. I call it Medicare for all. You call it universal health care. Whoever is running in the Indiana State Socialist Party needs to be out front in this. And that is because our brilliant governor has decided that he wants people to just stay on Medicaid for 3 years. And that's it. Now it hasn't passed, I don't think, but he's made cuts in treatment for autism, home health care aides, and I'm glad to see that the Indiana Socialist Party is addressing that. Yes, we need national universal health care. We absolutely positively need it. We need it on a federal level. But we may have to be looking at the states first because our federal system, they're moving not at all. They're just not doing anything to get this under control.
Yep, we've all heard it. We're the richest country in the world, and we don't have free healthcare. You go to so many other countries around the world, and they do. You don't have to worry about it if you get hurt, if you get sick, if you have cancer. You're taken care of. You don't have to worry about being in debt. We've all heard these, and it's totally true. We both parties talk about, hey, there's only so much money. We need only so much money. There is plenty of resources for working Hoosiers to thrive. All this scarcity talk, right? It's because we are, again, look at the distribution of wealth of the last 20 years in this country, right? We have given like $60 trillion, right? We've increased our wealth by $60 trillion, but that's all going to the 1% and those higher, right? We're continuing to get less and less of that. Billionaires and soon to be trillionaires we're going to have, right? So there is money out there. We just need the will to go to the state house and have representatives that will, as I would, not leave any existing tax structure unturned, right? I mean, we're in such dire straits in this state, not to mention other states, but in Indiana as well, in the rural district that I'm hopefully will represent, in such dire straits that we are obviously not doing the right job, right? If the state legislature can't make sure that their residents are, have food and housing and healthcare and education, then in my opinion, they're doing it wrong.
Exactly. The next issue is this one is another important one that we don't really talk about. Housing as a right that's guaranteed, safe, affordable, and confronting the farces that make shelter unsustainable and inaccessible. So again, I contend this. Indiana has the worst governor in the United States. Nobody can make me believe anything worse. He's terrible. There is essentially a bill that passed that essentially makes homelessness illegal. No,
Painful.
don't build homes. Don't build homes so that those homeless people unhoused can live in. Don't do that. Just make it illegal for them to sleep outside. One, what's wrong with this man? And second, I'm so glad you all are addressing that because that's essential. Housing, and I'm not talking about massive apartment buildings that are going up in our city that nobody can afford to live in. There's at least 14 or 15 new apartment complexes that have gone up. So I got curious one day. I said, how much is it to lease a 2 bedroom? Because I need 2 bedrooms. I gotta, sleep one room, office in another. $2,100. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? That's not affordable.
No.
That's not affordable. Half of those buildings, the majority of them are vacant. They get taxpayer monies to build those apartments that nobody can afford. But this genius of a governor passes a bill that says, it's illegal for you to sleep outside while not providing any type of, okay, we're going to give Lake County this much and Marion County this much. And no, don't do that. Don't use the surplus that we have.
No, gosh, the
Just make it
surplus.
illegal for them to sleep outside and then put them in jail. I just don't get it. How did this man get elected? I'm like, how? How, Indiana? Please tell me, because I don't understand it.
Yeah, it's so many things to say. I mean, again, two-party system, right? We have an alternate, potentially an alternative in the Democrats, supposedly, to be able to run, to have another kind of governor, right? And okay, fine. And there's third parties or other parties that can run as well and have, but it's we have to have more democracy. We have to have more choices to be able to, because everybody, so many people in Indiana are just like, yeah, I just vote red, I just vote R, I just vote straight party ballot line voting, which is not common across the United States, which is another thing we need to get rid of, is straight party ticket voting in elections. But there's so many things fighting against this, and that's why I'm learning as much as I can, and I'm doing what I can to run as an independent and build this other party to push back against all these horrible things that are happening. The surplus, right? Pay teachers, pay for housing. We call for, the governor calls for a special session on redistricting. Why don't we call for a special session on homelessness? Why don't we call for a special session on affordability? Why don't we call for a special session to figure out how to get healthcare to people, to feed people, right? There's so many schools that are having backpack programs, the superintendents I talk to that are constantly having to give 20% of their students backpacks, at night and on the weekends so that they can just be fed. It is ridiculous. So sorry, you got me excited.
No, it just upsets me. How much is the Indiana surplus that we have?
The last I heard, and this is probably several months old, is that there was $5 billion of unexpected revenue sitting there. And that is abhorrent, right? From homelessness to hunger to housing, healthcare and everything else, right? We're just holding back $5 billion on a rainy day fund when people are suffering so much in this state. It is disgusting, right? Spend every single one of those public dollars on helping Hoosiers with their basic needs.
But
Simple, right?
yet we're willing to give it to the people from Illinois to move the Chicago Bears to Lake County. Oh, yeah, make that makes. And by the way, that's not going to happen. Get this Hammond Lake, East Chicago. The Bears are going to stay right in the state of Illinois. They're not moving. They just use you to get the city to build them a better stadium. Although I think personally, Soldier Field is a great stadium, but that's a whole different discussion. But anyway, I feel like this. If the Indiana Socialist Party is going to do one thing that would make me say, yes, I'm in, yes, I'll volunteer, we gotta have to get rid of Brom and Beckwith. I don't care what it takes. We got 2 years to do it. I I, I think I don't think I think Brom is going to run for another term because Trump is going to, he's got his head so far up Trump's behind, it's ridiculous. But I think he's going to run for another term. And we have to do whatever it is to stop him from getting a second term, whatever it is. And I'm just like, okay, all hands on deck. Let's unite. Let's get this abhorrent man out of office. I wish Indiana was an impeach state or recall. I wish Indiana was a recall state. That's what I would really like, but we're not. Um, he's done everything from deny women access to health care, cut autism funding, again, made homelessness essentially illegal when asked, hey, when Trump made his cuts to SNAP, could we use some of the surplus to, kind of help while that was going on? No. Well, you get to say this and be good with it? That this man has to be stopped. Um, period. And that's what would make me be like, yep, I can get with that because he's so. I don't know anybody that says, he's a good governor. I literally know nobody. Now, maybe there's somebody out there that's a Brown fan. I ain't never met them. I don't know who they are, where they at, what they smoking, because I've never met them. That's my rant. Okay, so let me move on to the next one because Ben is not here to hear me rant all day. Um, the next one you have on your platform is another one, fighting data centers. Um, that is so important because I think that these data centers are built in susceptible communities, such as the rural community. Um, and when they're built in the what I call the inner city, they're often in Black neighborhoods. Um, and it seems to me like the public is on the right side of this issue, definitely. But it's like they they protest and they protest, but data centers keep getting built. And I would like some type of concrete plan about, maybe, I don't know, banning politicians from taking PAC money in the state. That would be so good because some of these politicians, I'm gonna call his name. Well, no, I won't. Because he's my friend on Facebook. But there is a politician, Democrat, that said, "Oh no, I'm against data centers," and this is why we thought, okay, this guy's in our corner. No, he wasn't. He went right and said, no, I'm actually for it. And this is why, come to find out, guess who made a contribution to his campaign? EIEIO. So that will be the first thing that I would like to see. But talk about the impact that data centers actually, the negative, because I don't know, I literally don't know a positive impact of data centers. It's like, well, they take pretty buildings and they, no, they aren't doing that.
Yeah, happy to talk about it. So my background is in tech. I've been in IT my entire career, so I can speak from a particular area of knowledge around this, right? So data centers, right, are, in today's world, AI hyperscale data centers are massive uses of electricity to start with, right? So I think all of the data centers that are currently planned, or at least several months ago were planned in Indiana, will take double the amount of electricity themselves, the ones that are planned in the next few years, than our entire generation, our entire use of everything else in our state, right? The entire grid that we've built, they want to double that 200% of our grid, right? When we are trying to replace our coal infrastructure so much with, renewables, close all these coal plants, trying to remove to renewables as soon as we can to counter climate change. And this is not helping, right? We need to be decreasing our load, right? We need to be putting in efficiency. We need to be, decreasing our utilization, not doubling it in a few years, right? That prevents us from decommissioning the coal plants. That is adding more natural gas, in our state, which is not great for the climate, right? So those are horrible things about it. If the data centers as electric customers to our utilities are going to be the highest, the biggest customers of those utilities, right? Versus you and I or corporations or anybody else, small business, then they're going to have an outweighed their influence on the power companies are going to outweigh ours, you and I. So when they say, "Hey, we need more power," right? We're creating more AI slop videos in our data center. You need to, brown out these other customers or whatever because we're paying you more. We've invested in you more. Then yeah, that's just another area where late stage capitalism is hurting working people and small businesses as well. So that's not a great prospect. The noise is a huge thing we've all heard about, right? We don't want the noise anywhere near us. Um, Overall, these AI data centers, right? These hyperscale AI data centers aren't helping working people, right? They are the stuff that they're creating is either slop, where it's taking away jobs from working class people without replacing them, without decreasing the 40-hour work week and paying us the same thing. If some of this is going to do a lot of our jobs, yeah, it's just another way that that the billionaires and the huge tech companies are taking more money away from working people very quickly. Um, and yeah, I don't support them, right? I'm come from a tech background. I work for a tech company. These are not something anybody had asked for, and we are growing faster than planetary limits allow to make these things. So we should rethink them. We should slow down. We should decide,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And the thing that scares me, I have a feeling, I know have no proof of this, but I think they're going to start moving towards nuclear energy because I keep hearing that come up and I'm like, no, 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 no. We let me say this about data centers. We unfortunately need them, but they need to be highly rated. We don't need as many as they're trying to build. Maybe one in the whole state. I mean, European countries have limited what data centers can do. We are just like, okay, just go out there and build, just building, we're not recycling buildings, not they don't create jobs except for the people constructing these new things. But after that it's constructed, I would be shocked if they even use humans to build the facilities. Um, they probably will, but I'm just saying you said it perfectly. They take away jobs, AI does. My other concern about AI is, are these companies paying for that increased electricity? I feel like it's going to fall on us, the consumer, to pay for that extra. Like my light bill is going to go up because of a data center, not because I'm using more electricity than I normally use, but because this data center is up the street and they're getting tax credits for this. I think that's what's upsetting me the most.
Yeah, yeah, we're seeing that across the country that, hey, they'll say that, yeah, they're going to completely pay for it, but we've seen that doesn't often happen. And there's also a risk, right? We've got this big boom right now of these hyperscale data centers, right? Data centers of the past, right? We've gotten like 2 or 3%, something like that, of our national grid has been powering traditional data centers, right? Not AI data centers. AI data centers are orders of magnitude need more power and water and everything else than more traditional non-AI data centers. But what this is creating is a risk, right? So if suddenly we're going to build all these gas plants, we're going to build all of this electric generating infrastructure, right? Transmission lines and everything else. And the power companies are going to, they're going to pay the power companies or say that they're going to pay the power companies over an amount of time. But if and when this bubble pops, right, and then these data centers are built and they're abandoned or they're not going to be used, right, who's left holding the bag for the bill of all this huge infrastructure that they've built? It's now been abandoned, right? All the generation plants, all of that generation infrastructure, right? It's going to be sitting there, and somebody's going to need to pay for it, and probably who that's probably going to be if that happens. So
Well, we know who it's going to be. It's going to be us. It's always us. We
mhm.
pay for the new stadium in town. We pay for the Fever somehow needing a complex. They can't play in the same stadium that the Pacers play in. Somehow they got to play in their own. We pay for uh, the Dollar General that builds in a location, and then 2 years later and we are always on the hook for these things. And it goes to the next point and the last one on your platform, or the platforms that I want to discuss: ending government corruption. There's only one where I hesitate, where the site says overturn Citizens United and replace billionaire fund elections with fully public finance of elections, which I agree with. Here where my hesitation is. We have yet to see when Democrats are in charge. We have yet to see any bill that says, okay, we're going to overturn this. The courts are not going to do it. They're not. This Supreme Court we have right now is not set up to overturn Citizens United. That, to me, is an option that is gone. Then you have the Democratic Party, when they are in control, could offer hey, you can't take PAC money. This isn't a good thing, but they aren't doing it. My concern is, or my question to them is, you do know you don't have to take PAC money, and you could just put it right there on your website. We don't take PAC money.
Mm-hmm.
You can do that right now. They use it as a thing to catch the public's ear, but they do nothing to make that a reality. Like, I don't know, passing legislation. They'll say, we need to end Citizens United. Well, are you going to pass any type of legislation that's going to do this? Because again, the court system is not set up to get rid of Citizens United. It is not. We have a terrible Supreme Court. They're not going to do it. So instead, you do it, but they haven't done it. It's just when I hear that phrase, I'm just like, okay, more word salad. And
Yeah.
I would love you to answer that for it because I hear it, but I'm like, really, everybody? Really?
Yeah, it's tough, right? I mean, so many Democratic candidates as well as Republican candidates use it. I've heard an interview with JB Pritzker in Illinois saying, hey, you're a billionaire. Is that really a good thing? Should you, should money be out of politics? And he's like, yes, but while this is the game that needs to be played, we're not going to, from a Democratic standpoint, he's like, we're not going to beat Republicans by not taking the money because we need the money, right? We want to level the playing field at some point in the future, but while these rules are here, so it's all about getting money out of politics, right? We just saw from our primaries around the state, right? All the Republican primaries, most of the Trump, endorsed challengers to people who didn't capitulate to him for redistricting back in December have gotten beaten because of money mostly, right? And, there's a continuing race here between Deary and Copenhagen, right near where I live, that's been contentious and whatever. And, more money has been spent on that primary per voter than anything in the history. And it's just, yeah, I don't know of any other way to get it done besides, hey, if the public is interested in getting money out of politics, then you have to elect candidates that are committed to that. You've got to hold them accountable for that. I don't, I agree that there's no easy way to do it, and the public has to be behind it, and the voters have to get behind candidates that are going to want to make that change. I'd love to hear other ideas and shortcuts that anybody would have, but yeah, that's
You're
my
right. It's
question.
public education because if you talk to the average person, they'll say, oh, well, you got to play their game. And I'm like, no, you don't have to play their game. There's another game you could play. It's called the honest game. I know it's not popular. I know it may take years and years and years to get there, but you don't have to take PAC money.
Mm-hmm.
You could just say, hey, we are, and I think that'll be a better message, right? Because you're saying, hey, I'm not going to be dictated by these political action committees. I'm taking money from the grassroots. I think that's a way better message, but I don't know if the public has been kind of brainwashed. I hate to use the word brainwashed, but conditioned to believe, well, we have to play their game to beat them at their game. Where I would think, no, there's another game that you can actually play.
Yeah, you've got to play by your values, right? And that's why I'm, again, running as an independent. That's why I'm running as an open socialist, to knock people's door. I say, hey, I'm an independent socialist candidate for the state house. I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. And surprisingly, very, very few people negatively react to that. So I, continuing to move that Overton window over to where socialism is not a dirty word, right? We've got Zoran in office. We've got Bernie has been around forever. We've got lots of people using these terms correctly, and that the economic changes that we need, right? The Democratic Party and the Republican Party aren't interested at that from a high level, from a leadership level, right? They're going to take the PAC money, they're going to take the APAC money, they're going to take all of this. Yeah.
and then say, we got to get rid of Citizens United. I wish they would just come forward like, yep, I take PAC money. And just, at least, just say it. Just go ahead and just say it. We know that's what you do, but I have a bunch of comments I got to get to, and I have two last questions because I know your time is valuable and I don't want to take up your whole day, evening. So, Nelson says, at the time when 82 months, Social Security will be in jeopardy of getting cut by 23%. We need more people to champion for removing the FICA cap in order to keep Social Security solvent. He's talking about the cap where
Yeah.
if you make like a certain amount, you're not taxed and it's not going into Social Security. I believe that's what you're talking about, Nelson. Please correct me because I've tried to research that and for some reason it just isn't computing in my head yet. So if you could explain that a little bit further, I would appreciate it. This is in the House. I did not realize this. The attack on public schools is similar to the attack on voting. To conservatives, everybody doesn't need to vote or to be educated. That is 100% facts. The goal to attach a fee to education segregation academias, and if you cause a problem because of lack of opportunity, then off to jail. Yep, that's true. He also says there is a clear alternative how we fund schools. It involves looking beyond real estate taxes. Michael, I think this is I didn't ask this question. What is your stance on lineage-based cash payment reparations for American freedmen of chattel slavery? Advocate, yes or no?
This is a tough one to figure out, and I struggle with this, right? Because working class people in this country have are struggling, right? The bottom versus the top are struggling. And when socialism wins in the United States and in Indiana, and we tax and take money away from billionaires from wealth taxes and income taxes and all these other kinds of things that we want to change, like, I've struggled with who do we start with, right? Do we start with Black and brown people? Do we start people that have been historically? Do we start with Native Americans, right, who have been genocided? And is there a does it make sense or not? And I haven't figured out an answer to that question. So I love feedback, right,
Here's
in the
what I
future of
will say.
yeah.
Because I'm a big, huge reparations advocate. Reparations is a debt that is owed.
Hmm.
This isn't something that we're just making up. We built this country for literally free. And just because you have reparations for the descendants of African slaves doesn't mean you can't have remedies for everybody else. And I think that's where people get confused about it. And they'll also say, well, I didn't own slaves. A white person will say that, but I'm like, no, but you benefited from it.
Yes,
And so
that's
I've
absolutely true.
always thought, yes, do it. Also, an apology would be nice. I know George W. Bush had that little whatever it was, call himself doing it. But I don't know if that's your view or the party's view, but if the party thought, this is a debt that is owed. And
Yeah,
the wealth gap between we're talking working class Black families and working class white families in a few years, our worth is going to be literally zero. And we're just not addressing. So I think reparations is a step. It's not the only step, it's the first step. But to me, it's always going to be this is a debt that's owed. And so
yeah,
I would invite whenever you're on YouTube, just kind of type it in because it's really something. Black people live in Indiana. We just do. There's not a whole lot of us. We do actually live in the state. We're in pockets. We're in Lake County, Allen County, Marion County, Vanderburgh County, Monroe County, but we live here. But and I get where you're having that hesitation, but I will always come back and say, because you're not saying I'm against it, because then I have to just cut you off because
no,
there's
I'm
no more
not saying that
conversation for me.
reparations don't make sense. They do. I just in the actual
You're
like
talking about
application.
first. And I'm
Yeah.
saying you could swipe a pen and get everybody. You don't have to exclude them. A president or a governor literally can say, okay, I'm gonna sign this bill first, this bill second, this bill third, all on the same day. I don't think we should make it a social struggle Olympics where this group gets the gold medal and this group doesn't. It doesn't matter, who we're going to address first. That's not a concern of mine. I'm just saying we need to be addressed. And I'm hoping that's what you're saying. And it sounds like that's what you're saying. But and I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'm like, reparations is a debt. Oh, that doesn't mean I'm not addressing the concerns of genocide in our indigenous communities. Nope, that just means we're going to give this to this and this group this and this group this and this group this, et cetera, et cetera. We just go down the line. So
Yeah. I'm
it's
a
a matter
total
of
yes. I'm
priority.
just like I want to like I try to think too many steps ahead of like the details of like execution. So it's
Right. And
probably not.
there's details, but I'm saying you could, a governor, let's just say we're going to have a study commission in Indiana. We won't because we're Indiana, but let's just say we do. California's doing it, Massachusetts is doing it. You have this commission, and in 2 years, don't give them all day. Um, they say, okay, we're going to give every Black citizen of Indiana $50,000. There's only, I don't think there's 600,000 Black people in the whole state of Indiana. I don't think. Let's just say there are. You're not even making a dent on the surplus that we already have. If you did the exact same thing for the indigenous community, you're still not making a dent on the rainy day fund. If you then added the brown population, you're still not making a dent, right? So it's to me, when I hear someone say they're against it, I'm like, you're not understanding the theory. We literally built this country. I know Asian Americans had a great deal of building the railroads. They did. I'm not taking that away. But I'm saying we did this. We were forced to do it. It wasn't our choice. We were forced to do it. And so I would say if that's the way the party sees it, the party kind of needs to make adjustments. But you're thinking down the line, who's first, who's second. I'm like, well, they can all be first. Because just because you got one group getting reparations doesn't mean another group can't. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, and
Hopefully
that's
that
not
makes
something
sense.
I feel comfortable, deciding myself. I think it needs a lot of people coming together to help figure out what that looks like. And but yes, so many people, so many people deserve. I mean, the generational wealth that's been lost, and all the redlining, and all the continuous, racial disparities and racial decisions and hiring and is it's yes, 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 and help me figure out how. Yeah.
Theus also says a lottery tax is regressive. The lottery itself is already a tax on poverty and working class people. I agree, but I'm saying this. People don't stop playing the lottery. When you go to the gas station, there's always this person ahead of you that wants to get 15,000 lottery tickets while they're getting them. I'm just saying you have to get the money from somewhere other than property taxes. That's all I was saying. Um, I'm gonna do one more here. Thea says your guest may be very well meaning, but keep in mind he's operating from a blind spot. Kudos to him for admitting he hasn't thought it through. The challenge is the next time he comes to have ideas to share. No, that's because I kept going on my tangents. It wasn't him, it was me. This one was me. Because I just kept going. He answered the questions that I asked him. Um, And those are all the comments I'm going to share. So, of course, I would love to have you been back so you can talk more about your actual platform and I can keep my mouth shut. That would be really great. Um,
No problem at all. I enjoy talking to you.
um, and so you can talk about that campaign. The last question I have for you is what's next for the party, the Indiana Socialist Party?
Yep. So we've been working to try to get the 38,000 signatures that we need to get Harrison on the ballot. The way to get a ballot line is that you need to get 2%. Like I need to get 2% in my race, or 2% of what I need to get on the ballot. He needs 38,000 signatures. And then when he gets on the ballot, then he'll need to get 2% of the vote, and then we'll have a ballot line. It's getting pretty close to June 30th. We're not getting the volunteers that we need around the state to be able to gather those signatures. So if anybody's listening to this and interested, please go to socialistpartyin.com and sign up, and then you can join our efforts, get you trained, get you some signature forms, and get you out there. So that's kind of our current goal. But yeah, if we don't meet that, then I'm pretty sure I'm going to get my 22 more signatures that I need. So focus will be around my race and see what working class messaging can do in a rural Indiana district, right? They really haven't had any other options, any other independents out there. So we'll see what Republicans, Democrats, independents, non-voters think about the platform, and see if that's something that they they can get behind. Hopefully they can, right? Hopefully it's that they going to people's doors and saying, I'm not, a member of the two-party system. I'm getting a lot of people to sign. The data shows that 50% of the people that we're knocking doors on signed the petition, and that's a great sign. So, yeah, it's just continuing to work on building the platform. We're not going to stop. We have 4 more years. If we don't get our Secretary of State candidate on the ballot this time around, we'll get it next time, and we'll just continue building. We'll build the organization, build the platform, build what membership looks like, right? And just continue building it with the volunteers and the grassroots folks who are interested in helping us build it. So we anybody who wants to be involved, we'd love to have your help.
Thank you so much for coming. I greatly appreciate it. You all know that I have not had a lot of guests for the month of May, so I kind of did a little creative thing called giving tips for third-party candidates that want to raise money. I did the virtual slumber party last Thursday, and because Ben is on this show, I couldn't do the virtual house party or the house party, so I'll be doing that on Saturday. And so I'm still looking for guests for June. If you can tolerate me just going on rants, please contact me. Just don't be a Democrat, don't be a Republican. I'd be glad to hear about your campaign and talk to you about that campaign because the entire month of June is open. Yay. But I do thank everybody for watching. I think this was a great show. We got to learn a whole lot about a party that literally I just learned about literally what 2 months ago. And I look forward to hearing more about the party and what the party is doing. Remember, here is one I don't think Ben mentioned it, but the Indiana Socialist Party would appreciate donations.
Absolutely.
Copying petitions is not cheap. Transportation is not cheap. Yard signs are not cheap. We don't have publicly financed elections, any size contribution, large or small. You can go to that website right there, and that's spi.nationbuilder.com/donate. They would appreciate those donations. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, he didn't say anything about donating. So let me go find the donate link and put it up there so that people know that they can make a donation. Nelson's going to have the last words. He says, thank you for going. Thank you for giving it a go, Ben. Wishing you all the best. Never give up, never surrender. And that is from Nelson. Thank you all for joining. Remember to subscribe to this channel. Subscribe. I'm at 480. I'm 20 away. We can do this. We can actually get to 500. I want to get to 500 so badly, but I appreciate it. So hit that subscribe button. Share this podcast with 4 of your friends. Support me on Patreon. And lastly, importantly, support the drama camp that I'm heading up this summer. It'll take place from June the 20th through August the 15th, 2026, in the lovely city of Indianapolis, Indiana, giving inner city youth the chance to experience drama in a Christian environment. We certainly appreciate your contributions, great or small. Ben, thank you. Thank you so much for coming. Have a great day, everybody. Bye bye.